The US dollar may about to get stronger in the next coming of months, not because of Donald Trump or the wars, but because of what the chart is suggesting. The chart here is the DXY, which is also known as the US dollar index. This simply measures the strength of the dollar. So as the DXY rises, the dollar begins to get stronger. And as the DXY falls, the dollar begins to get weaker. So this is the DXY chart, and there was something I noticed using cycle analysis, and I have two approaches I use to analyze the charts. The first one is technical analysis, the second is cycle analysis. And technical analysis has to deal with structure, while cycle analysis has to deal with time. So in this video, I'm analyzing the charts using cycle analysis, and later on I'll talk about this same chart using technical analysis. So as you can see, this chart is random. We are just going up and down, up and down. There was something I noticed using my cycle analysis technique. So once I put my lines on the chart, you will see what I mean by this. All I'm doing is I watch what has happened, what is happening now, and see what is likely about to happen. Once you go to the 12-month chart, it means one candle is 12 months, meaning one candle is 1 year. So starting from our vertical line, the red vertical lines, we can see this is the vertical line, next vertical line, this as well is a vertical line. These signify top price on DXY. So this is a top, this is also a top, this is also a top. As I already said, cycle analysis has to deal with time, so I'm looking at the chart with respect to time. And our base here, we see these magnify the time or the dates. Because as you can see, this peak, looking at the base, it was in 1985. Next peak, looking at the base, was in 2001. Next peak, looking at the base, was in 2017. So you are seeing how long each peak takes. So we can see from this peak to this peak, I labeled it peak range. This is 16 bars, which means 16 years, because we are on a yearly chart. 1 bar equals 1 year or 12 months. So once I go to the M, meaning 1 month, once you see a bar, so 192 bars mean 192 months, because we are on the monthly chart. So going back, this is a 12 month. Once you're on a 12 month, 1 bar equals 1 year or 12 months. So from this peak to the next peak, we can see it took 16 bars, which I already said means 16 years. The next peak here to this peak also took 16 years. Looking at how this peak occurred here, this peak occurred here, and how do I know it's 16 years? You look at the base. This peak occurred in 2001. Looking at the down here, next red line here occurred in 2017. So from 2001 to 2017 is 16 years. That is how we have this 16-year range. So you can see we've had a peak to 16 years, peak of 16 years. Let's go to the bottom and see what has occurred. So looking at the bottom as well, from this bottom to this bottom, we've had a 16-year. This is actually 16 years and some months. So that is why it's showing 17 years, but it's actually 16 years and 10 months. So this as well can also be considered 16 years. So from this bottom to this bottom is also considered 16 years. From this bottom to this bottom as well, also considered 16 years. Why is this 16 years? As I already said, you look at it down. So from this bottom, we can see is 1975, 6 plus 17 years is 1992. From this 1992, 16 years later, gives us 2008, which you can see here. And 2008, 16 years later, gives us 2024. So now we see we have a peak range, which is the red lines occurring every 16 years. A bottom range, which is the green lines occurring also 16 years. What can we find in between? So looking at the B to P, which is bottom to peak. So from our bottom to our peak, what can we notice? So from this bottom to this peak, how long did it take? It took 9 years. The next bottom to peak is this place. So from this bottom to this peak, we have ourselves here. It also takes 9 years. Next one, this bottom to this peak also take 9 years. We can see we've been occurring bottom to peak for 9 years. What again can we see? From our peak to this bottom, how long has it taken all over the years? So the first peak to bottom, which is here, this peak to this bottom took 7 years. Next peak to bottom, which is here, peak to this bottom, and you know the peaks are the red, green is the bottom. So this peak to this bottom also 7 years. This peak to this bottom also 7 years. So where are we now? This is our candle. Since we're in a yearly candle 2026, this is where we are now, and we are around a bottom. How does this information help us today to see what's likely going to happen? Right now, we are going to focus at the bottom zone, because that is where we are now in the cycle. The first question you may ask, if our bottom zone, this green line here, look at it down here, is 2024, why have we dropped from 2024 till 2026, where we are now, even though this cycle analysis is suggesting we had bottom in 2024. So to answer that question, we just have to see the previous bottoms to see how it has occurred during that time. So this is where we are now. Per this cycle, 2024 was our bottom. What happened the previous bottom? As we can see, this bottom we have here, this was our initial bottom. We know where the dates are, 2008. The dates are down here. Our bottom occurred in 2008. This bottom as well occurred in 1992, and the next bottom occurred 1975. So we can see that from our bottom 3 years after, we have a low. What do I mean? So from this bottom, looking at the base as well, is 1975. And I said 3 years after 1975, we'll have a low in DXY, then we go higher. So this is 1975, 3 years later. So this is 1, 2, 3. This is the third year. Look at the base as well. That is 1978. So the low 3 years later, 1, 2, 3. 3 years later, we have a low, then we go up. That is what happened the first bottom. Let's look at the next bottom as well. This was our bottom. Look at the base, 1992. 3 years later will give us 1995. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. This candle is 1995. We had a low, then went higher. This happened for the second time. Let's see for the third bottom as well. This was our bottom 2008. So 3 years later from 2008 to give us 2011. Let's see what occurred during this bottom. So from this bottom, 1, 2, 3 gives us 2011. In 2011, we actually had a low in 2011. Then we went up in DXY as well. This occurred for the third time. 2024 was our low. So 3 years later from 2024 is 2027. So since this has always occurred, this might likely occur once more. So from 2027 will be our third year. So 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027 might be our likely low for DXY. Then from 2027, we head higher into the next peak, which is likely going to be 2033. This is very simple. So as we get closer to the time, that is when we use technical analysis to help interpret the charts. So why is it even important to look at what the US dollar is about to do? It's important because it serves as the world's dominant reserve currency. What does this mean? So dominant simply means it's widely used for transactions and is accepted around the world for spending, and the reserve here simply means it's trusted around the world for savings. So most savings of countries around the world hold dollars, and the dollar is a globally recognized currency for transactions. So the strength or weakness of dollar affects the entire global economy. So we need to know what the dollar is likely about to do to see how this can affect us as an individual. I'm Emmanuel, and if you found this analysis helpful, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you'll be informed about what is happening in the financial space.